again, like yesterday, I will stop time to time, let you give you an opportunity to ask a question. Until then, you keep yourself in mute. Unless you have a real good question, you can jump on and ask it. Today, we're going to cover Agile, and we talked about it. Agile is one of the popular software development methodologies that everybody looks for. So if we learn it good, it just makes our resume so heavy that we know Agile. But we also talked about it. Agile is not just some theory, some bullets, some rules. However, it is a mindset. We need to be agile. It's not just learning agile, it's about being agile. But before that, I would like to talk about there are diversity, even within the agile community, there are diversity. So as far as book goes, there are books that will tell you the rules and certain things in a certain way, but then in the real world, there are diversities. We adapted and we put our own stuff into it, and we make a mixed agile. But that's just the reality. Corporation knows that we have mixed culture of agiles. But as far as the book goes, we have these 3 frameworks of agile, and we call them Scrum, Kanban, and XP. If you ask me which is the most popular one, I would say Scrum and Kanban. XP is such an old agile. I don't really see that industry practice that anymore. But people practice Scrum and Kanban. Are they same? They're not same. They're slightly different, but there are similarities. They're both agile. They both tells you to do things in an iteration, not do the whole thing together, but also piece it out. Keep track of these. Every little different piece. They both tell you that, but how we do it, it's a little different between Scrum and Kanban. Today, we will take a look at Scrum. But let's give you a real example. Like if a corporation is using Kanban and they're looking for a QA tester who have worked on Kanban, and you have Scrum in your resume, they'll still hire you because they know there is not bigger of a difference. If you know how to work on a Scrum, you will know how to work on Kanban. So I highly recommend while you are learning QA, don't confuse yourself of learning all of these. These are 3, and there are more. If you look into online, you'll find 3, 4 more agile frameworks. Now, if you go start learning all of them, you'll be confused. I would say rather focus on Scrum for now and learn one Scrum, by your heart. Learn all the rules and try to picture that. So that will help you to get there faster. So what is Scrum, right? Scrum is a framework. So what do we mean by a framework? The framework is something that, a set of rules that is already there for you. Some people, old people, like the folks that has been working on the software industry for long time, who has followed these agile, and they have been extremely successful. Now they have written a framework. They are saying that if you're going to be agile, just follow these rules. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just follow these rules and you will be successful. That's one kind of rules was given by Scrum framework. So Scrum is a framework that has certain rules to follow. Set of rules to develop an application. We do certain things in a certain way. We do a bunch of meetings. We do that every day. We basically do 2 to 3 weeks of iteration. So Scrum suggests us that you want to be agile, so you do 2 to 3 weeks of iteration every day. And each iteration, we call them sprint. I said 2 to 3 weeks, and then some corporation will do 2 weeks iteration, some corporation will do 3 weeks, some corporation will do 4 weeks. So if you decide to do 4 weeks, it will be a 4 weeks iteration. Every 4 weeks we'll have a sprint of work, we call it. First 4 weeks will be sprint 1, second 4 weeks will be sprint 2, third 4 weeks will be sprint 3. This is how we roll. But So the goal is to that at the first sprint, we would do all of these stages that we talked about yesterday. We get a small chunk of the requirements, and then we design that small chunk. We develop that small chunk as it could be a little feature of your website, not the entire website, but a little feature. All right. And then we only test that piece, that feature that we have developed. And then we release and release for maintenance. So the goal of a sprint is to develop and test a fully, develop, test, and deploy a fully ready one feature, one part of the application at the end of the sprint. This is how we go. This is how we will develop piece by piece, right? Now, I said 4 weeks sprint is still a little long for the corporation. People don't want to wait like 4 weeks to see their first modules getting done. So everybody wants to be faster. Everybody wants to be frequent, right? So now that I see the corporation practice 2 weeks sprint, most of them, I would say majority of them practice 2 weeks, 2 weeks iteration. That means that, you know, I would get a little less requirement. I will get just about requirements in our plate that could be done in 2 weeks. And we'll design that, we'll code that, we'll test it, we'll release it. And then we'll go for the next sprint. So this sprint is nothing but a time frame of 2 weeks. So if anybody asks you, there's no hard rule, that's what I'm trying to say. Well, someone's up done 2 weeks and someone come to you and say, oh no, sprint has got to be 2 weeks. It's not true. It's flexible. So Scrum gives you that platform as a framework, but you can twist it a little bit as far as you need. So that's what it is. So, you know, that's one thing. And then let's move on. Let's see what else we got. So 2 weeks. So Agile, so Scrum is all about how we spend that 2 weeks from the day one to the last day of the sprint. That's what you probably have to get it very nicely, and then you'll get a clear idea of how we develop software in Agile. Right? Stages are there. You already know the stages of software development. This isn't changing, right? It's the same as waterfall: requirement, coding, designing, testing, maintenance. The only thing is that we do in a little chunk. There are a few things changes. We don't call it a requirement anymore in Agile. We call it user story, right? That's kind of the next thing. We call it user story. Why? Because in Agile, every requirements are written from the end user's point of view, end user's perspective. Its user story is a little requirement. Each requirements are separated out because in Agile, we piece it out, right? So question might come like, where do we write the user story? And that's when this tool comes in the picture called Jira. I have a sample version here, you know, for my students to practice. And this is a very simple tool. You should learn it. Whether you're becoming a BA, QA, Scrum Master, or developer, the whole team works out of this tool. And this tool has 70% of the market stack, right? So it is the tool that you need to learn. There are, however, other tools out there to manage all the artifacts that we create while we're developing softwares, such as Quality Center, QC. It's a product by HP. It's been there for a while, 20 years it's been there. Recently, Jira came. It's a product by Atlassian and took it over for the last 5-10 years. Now everybody uses it because it's more Agile friendly. So there are tools called version 1, Rally, all these tools. Now, what does this tool call? Is it an Agile management tool, a project management tool, a defects management tool, a test management tool? Actually, all of them. And so in short, this tool is called application management tool or Agile application management tool, ALM, or things like that. But it is the tool that you write defects, you write test cases, you write requirements, I mean user stories, and everything in one tool. So we can create connections between them. We'll see that. Some of this we'll see today and some of them we'll see tomorrow. So first and foremost, when you come to Jira, you log in. Definitely you don't have the credential. They will have to give you the credential when you get a job for that office, for that company. And you'll see all the projects are listed out under projects. So what I can see right now is the project view. And you can switch between projects from here, right? For example, I'll pick a project, view all projects. So this is where you go and you see all the projects that your corporations are offering right now. There are some projects created already for my students, and for example, I will create the I'll get the one called TFT Clothing Store Practice Project. So it's a project. So you click on it and you get into that project and you see a bunch of things. First, that you see something is sprint 1, sprint 2. You can create multiple sprints here. But first and foremost, you see something called backlog, right? Here's your active sprint, the sprint you are working on right now. You can see it here, and there are, I'm coming there in a bit. But first and foremost, you have a place called backlog. And all these things that you see, these are stories. So if I click on one, so this is a logo, the green little thing that you see. This is the logo of a user story. In Agile, in Jira, if you see something like that, that means it is a user story. And user story is a requirement, right? Written by BA, right? BA will write this. BA will be responsible for writing it. Now I'm going to show you one, how to write it. So when you click on a user story, when you go to backlog, click on a user story, click in this link to bring it up in the full window. And user story will be written like that. It's just your English. It has a summary. The user must be able to get company's contact information and social media link, right? This is what comes from the client and gets written up in Jira. And then one thing you must note here, that the user story will have a one-liner headings and then a description. A description goes in here. Who will write the description? BA will write that description. BA is the one who gets the requirement from the client. And then BA will write the description. And every user story will have certain criteria written. It's called acceptance criteria. It's very important for you to understand in Agile. When a user story is written, there must be some acceptance criteria written. What is that acceptance criteria is all about? That acceptance criteria will tell under what criteria that user story will be accepted. It will be also written by the BA. The whole thing of user story, it will be written by BA. So as a tester, what we have to do, we have to read these acceptance criteria, right? If I read it right now, it says that user must, there are certain ways of writing it. I'm not going there yet, but I'm just reading it. Scenario. User must be able to click Contact Us button. Given user at the home page. So I kind of start picturing it. Okay, user at the home page. When the user clicks Contact button, so there should be a button or Contact button at the home page. Then the user should be taken to Customer Service Contact Us page, where user can send an email through the webmail feature. And the user fill out with the personal details number and name and email, and user submit the form. And user should go get a confirmation email. So it's like user is trying to contact the company. So at the home page, there should be a Contact Us button. If user clicks it, user will be taken out to a page. The name of the page is Customer Service page, where user can write something, fill out the form by putting name, email, and user submit with the question. and then user should get a confirmation. User should get a confirmation email saying the store will contact them within 2 to 3 business days. This is your acceptance criteria. By reading these, you will know what to test. Now, let me ask you, let me open up for questioning. I'm sure you haven't seen the application because it's not, let's say, it's not developed yet. We are just reading the user story. By reading these, can you picture what are you going to test, or what are you going to have to test? You have to test.
Test button.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead again.
Contact us button.
Yeah, yes, contact us button. Now, read the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, if the user clicks on the contact button, so the user should go to that customer service contact us page, and where he should be able to send an email to the management. And once he send that email, he should get the confirmation that he will be contacted soon with this issue. That's the scenario.
Right.
I think it's like a sign up process or something like that.
Contact us. It's a contact process, but that was not my question. Now, my question is, what do you have to do? It's already written in here. The acceptance criteria will give you some sort of idea what to do or how to do. But under what criteria it will be accepted? So what would you test?
Do you have to, maybe you'll have like some test confirmation emails and you can go in and check those?
Exactly, that's what it says right here. That's what it says right here. So
Right.
you should get a confirmation email, stating the store will be contact them within 2 to 3 business days. Since
You would probably have some test users set up, some email accounts, right? Where you can test that to make sure that those emails were received.
yeah, that's called test data. So I'm coming there. I'm just showing you the entire workflow, how a requirement will convert into a test and how you will do the test. First and foremost, all the requirements we call user stories will be written like that. Okay? User stories will be written like that, and user stories will have acceptance criteria. So each of these acceptance criteria needs to be tested by you. So there are 2 acceptance criteria, not just one. So one user story can have multiple acceptance criteria. If you read them properly, it should already tell you what to do in your testing. Now, do you jump on doing the testing? No. What you have to do is to write a test case.
Where's the test case, right?
Yes. In every industry, this is not just in the software industry, whether you are an electrical engineer, you are a manufacturing engineer, a pharmaceutical engineer, before you do any kinds of testing, you have to actually document the steps that what you are going to do, just to be in the safe side. Because look, you might be a rock star tester, but corporation still wants you to write it down before you do it. Because what if you leave the company tomorrow? What if you hit a lotto, right? $50 million or something. You're gonna leave, you will be rich, not the company, right? If they don't have those things written out, if you live in the middle of the project, their entire 20 months of work worth of work is gone. They don't want that. So they want you to write it down. So that's called test case, right? Whatever you guys have just said, that you are going to do it, write down the steps and the expected results. And that's it, all about a test case. We will write some test cases tomorrow because that's going to be one of our main job. So first, let's take a step back again. So here's my requirements, and requirements. I mean story. I keep saying requirements. We should say story in Agile, and they will have acceptance criteria. Now, how to create them? Even though we will learn more Jira tomorrow, but there's a create button. You can easily create anything in here. It's so simple. You can either create a story, epics, test, whatever, bug. It's so easy. We will see that tomorrow. So I'm coming back, right? Coming back to my slide. User stories. We have an understanding right now that it will be small chunk of work. It will not be a big chunk of work. It will be a small chunk of work. It will have acceptance criteria written. You as a tester, you really need to read the acceptance criteria, read the story. Then only you will have a proper understanding of the requirements that you need to test. From that, you are responsible for writing a test case. And developers are responsible for developing that functionality by writing code. You are responsible for writing a test case. Then once the development is done, then you are responsible for executing that test case. And what I mean by execution is that now you do perform the test, right? Whatever you have written, steps, now it's your time to perform those and check those emails whether you got it or not. That's called execution of test case. Again, we're going to do that tomorrow. Any questions regarding user stories? Any quick questions?
I have a question, Sheikh.
Sure.
So, do I need to we don't need to write the requirement, right?
You don't. If you're becoming a BA, you might become a BA after that.
Okay.
Then you do. It's a BA's job to write those requirements.
You just understand the requirement, right?
You do, yes, you have to understand the requirements.
One more thing, do you write to like a task plan or something like that?
You have to write a test plan, but that's such a waterfall world. In Agile, we believe in less documentation. We believe in just enough documentation to do the work because we are 2 weeks only. We don't have time to write a big plan, for the entire 6 months. That is required more when you do waterfall, because you're gonna do the test for 6 months. You need a plan, right? What tools do you need? What risks do you have? What assumption? What's under scope? What features you're testing? What automation? So now you need a big plan. So test plan is a big document that the waterfall methodologies suggest to do. But in Agile, we just write test cases, to be honest, unless you really want to do at the beginning of one project, beginning of the project, you can create one. But Agile suggests less documentation, less big documentations.
Cool, thanks.
But however, I can show you a test plan tomorrow.
All right, cool.
Hey, Sheikh, I have a question. So what if we couldn't complete the test cases or complete our testing within 2 weeks that you said? If it's not possible to finish it up within 2 weeks, what are you gonna do about it then?
That's a very, very, very important question, because they ask you, they will ask you this question during the interview. What if we can complete testing within 2 weeks? That's a common problem of software development in Agile. And even the problem is the developers takes more time to develop, right? Now we don't have time to test. I know that it's gonna finish in 2 weeks. Now what to do? So in that time, what we do risk-based testing. What do I mean by that is let's say you have written 40 different test cases, covering every single story, every single acceptance criteria. Now you don't have time to execute all these 40 test cases. What you're gonna do, you're gonna identify those test cases that has a high risk of security. And then, so you will just prioritize them. Basically, you're gonna prioritize, you're gonna prioritize your list. Out of 40, now you have 10. You can prioritize based on, now you're gonna prioritize them, I know. Based on what? Based on security risk.
Okay.
More important, severe test cases will be executed first. Then, that's why we need more automation, right? If you have more automation tests, then you don't need time to run those automation tests. That's why industry requires more automation engineers. If you can learn those coding, Selenium, Cucumber, BDD, continuous integration, then you can eliminate this problem. That development will go late. That's just a given fact. You don't have control over it. However, you plan, you do a lot of things, a lot of planning, a lot of estimates. Still, in the reality, development goes late. And then you don't have time to test. So that's one. This is the one approach you'll take. You'll take risk-based priority approach. Secondarily, you can take exploratory testing approach. Now, if you really have like 1 day, 2 days left to do the test, because development took all the time, you don't even have time to execute all those 10 test cases. In that, and maybe it's a critical release. It has to go out at the end of the sprint. So what would you do? You do a lot of exploratory testing. And if you don't know what's exploratory, just look it up tomorrow. I will also try to give you some different types of tests that we do in the industry. Exploratory testing means that now I don't care about test cases. I will just explore the application and I'll look for defects. I would click on this link. I know that if I click on this link, it should go to the next page. I know that if I want to contact the company, I would have to click on this link. It'll go. So it's your experience. Explore and test. That's called exploratory test. You'll have to focus more on that because you don't have time. But is it good? Is it going to give you a great software? No, of course not. A great software will come if you estimate properly, if you write the right test cases, if you do automation for the future, and if you do continuous integration, manage the deployment throughout a tool and pipeline, and smoothen the process, scale the process. That's when you're going to have a quality software. And that's what every industry is after, right? So QA is very, very, very important part of the development. Without having a QA, a great QA practice, you would never be able to get a good software, a smooth software, a performing software. And without that, as our 7 out of 10 corporations are online based, they wouldn't be able to make money or scale their businesses. So QA is ultimately very important, plays a great role, very important role, part of that ecosystem. So anyways, I'm gonna move on. Do you guys have any more questions?
Yes, I do have one more question. So what if I don't understand any acceptance criteria or any requirements that's written by BA that you mentioned? So what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna contract them through the email, or is there anything that we have in Jira that we can contract them? I
think I would not answer that question right now. I think end of today's session, you'll have a clear understanding. But that's also an interview question. They ask you that, what did you do? Or tell me about a time, a scenario when in your job, or whatever job you did, that you didn't understand anything. Exactly. What do you do, right? Yes. It's really a diplomatic question. They want to know that you are a go-getter. You're not somebody who just sit there and be like, oh, I don't understand, right? They want to. If they ask you this question, that means they want to see that you have the skill, you have the communication, willingness to go solve problems, figure it out. Keep that in mind. But what we actually do in the Agile, you will get that answer when I cover the whole thing. So I'll hold on to it, okay?
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. Now, think about, we're going to develop a project, which is an e-commerce platform, an entire platform like Amazon. So first, what we need is Scrum. Let's say we follow Scrum, right? So we need a business owner, right? And a BA. Business owner is the client. Business owner will give you the requirements and BA will take it and write it. First we need these two, right? Maybe this guy. He's a business owner. He's a BA, sorry. BA will meet the business owner and get the requirements. Now in Agile, business owner comes and work with you, part of the team. Why? Because if we don't have the business owner or the client with the team, then it would be so time consuming that if BA has a question, then BA has to go back and forth. It'll be so time consuming. So if I am the business owner and I am giving you guys the contract to build my app or software, I will work with you every day, or I will give you a representative from my end who knows the requirement. So who can work with you every day and answer your question. Literally every day. It's going to be part of your team. So we need a role, right? What do we call that role? Do we call it business owner? No. We call that role a product owner. He is the one who will own the entire product, and he work with you. So now you know that in Agile, we have an extra role called product owner. So the product owner and BA will come in the picture first, and they will start talking about the product that we're going to build in a way that they will start writing those user stories. And the product backlog is a place, a storage area, where initially they will write all the stories, right? And they'll just dump it in there. Think of it as a storage area, like I showed you in Jira, right? This backlog is your product backlog. They will write all the stories are in here. You see that column called backlog? That's your product backlog. They will write stories in here. All the stories that that is wanted by end customer, or that is wanted by the product owner itself. He's the product owner. The product owner will decide what stories are important for this feature. Every single little requirements he will decide, and BA will take note and write it. Write it where? In this backlog. If you use Jira, then in this backlog, product owner will write all the stories. So this is how requirement refreshment, story gathering, or release planning, whatever you call, happens in Agile. Then, so now we have a product backlog, right? When the entire product backlog is done, then you will probably have 300, 400, 500 stories, and that is your entire project, broken down into every little different pieces. Now you have a clear picture of all the stories and the entire project. Now, can you develop all of them together? No, then we will go back to waterfall. Now we are Agile. We know that we do sprint every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, we get a chunk of the stories from the backlog. Now the question, which one first, which one second, who will help us to set that priority? The product owner will do. So during this sprint planning meeting, right, team pulls a small chunk of story from product backlog and decide how to apply those pieces. So that means every sprint, at the beginning of every sprint, we do a meeting. It's called sprint planning meeting. During that meeting, team gets together and pulls a chunk of story and put them into sprint backlog. They can say, okay, this one we're going to do in sprint 1, and these 2 are the second priority, so that goes to sprint 2, and 3, 4, 5, 6, that goes to sprint 3, 4, 5. So team does that during sprint planning meeting. Now, Scrum frameworks offers you 4 different ceremonies, 4 kinds of meeting. That's what Scrum tells you to do. Scrum tells you at the beginning of a sprint, the first day, you do sprint planning meeting. How long is it? 3-4 hours. It's a long meeting where you actually go through every backlog in Jira, read through it, then discuss then which one you're going to do within that sprint. And who helps you to set that priority? Again, the product owner is part of the team, right? Product owner is sitting there. You can ask questions right there in that meeting, at the sprint planning meeting, that, about anything. It's your meeting, it's your team. So we get together, the people are pretty friendly in Agile, right? That's also part of being Agile. You be friendly, you let people ask questions, because the only way it's gonna get done is by asking questions. So, so sprint planning will happen and the priority gets set. From there, we will distribute into various different sprints. Like this is sprint 1. And then all these stories was as part of the backlog first, and then they got moved to sprint 1 backlog in Jira. So moving is very easy. You can just drag and drop. You can drag from the backlog and drop it over here. Now it becomes part of the sprint 1. Again, BA will do that, but the point to understand, as a QA, Agile QA, you have to participate in that sprint planning meeting. So what do we do at the sprint planning meeting? Like I said, it's a 4-hour meeting. So we do story grooming. That means we pick each story from the backlog and we talk about it. Talk about it means that we read the acceptance criteria. We understand like what is it that we're going to build. We understand the level of complexity. We talk about the data. Someone asked me like where the data is going to come from to test. That's what you're going to ask at the sprint planning meeting. That I need to test it, right? Developers will ask questions from their end that I need to develop it. I have these questions. You will ask question about testing, that I need to test it. I need this email address. I need this test data. I need to write a test kit. Whatever question you have, this is your place to ask. That goes, Deborah, did you have a question? No? Okay. So that goes under story grooming. That's the grooming sessions. And then we do something, we do an estimate. Also, when do we estimate the work? In the sprint planning meeting. Now, how do we estimate? There are popular estimation technique called poker gaming. Right? We play poker gaming. We read through every story and we identify the hour of work individually. So we take everybody's opinion and people will give their estimates. Someone will say it takes 3 hours. Someone will say it takes 5 hours. Each of the team member provides an estimate and then team finalize accordingly. First say, right? There is a pointing technique as well. Every hour is 1 point. And this technique is called story point. Majority of the team will follow story points. And the 1 point is 1 hour, 2 point is 2 hour, 3 point is 3 hour, 8 point is 8 hour. That means if someone says that after a user story, if someone gives 8 point, that means that he thinks or she thinks it's going to take 8 hours to develop and test, to complete the story. Okay? So these pointing techniques, Fibonacci numbers are used. 1, 3, 5, 8. If somebody thinks a story will be 7 pointer, that falls under the 8 pointer buckets. So that we have 1, 3, 5, 8. The estimation techniques. So this is how we estimate, and we play a poker gaming card. We read out an user story, we read out an acceptance criteria, and we ask for everybody's opinion. Everybody will then give a number on the table. So it's like that. On the table, everybody will throw the card. They normally have a card. It's like a playing card with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you think it's a 5-pointer, you will throw the card of 5. Everybody throws the card of 5. Now, so let's say we are a team of 12, 13 members. And someone really thinks one story will take 3 points. And someone thinks like a 13 points, right? There's a lot of difference between these two. And that's probably someone thinks about 3 points, he has a reason, or she has a reason that she thinks it's such a low time required to do the story. And someone thinks 13 points also has a reason that he thinks or she thinks is 13 points. So what do? That's a perfect time that we start a dialogue. Like, okay, talk about why do you think it's a 13 points? A developer might say, tester might say that, I have to write, I need to create test data to test it. It's not just simple. It's just nothing that we have done before. So I need to entirely create new test data. There is no way to do it. We're dependent on other teams, or I have to go to database and create my own test data. That will require additional 18 hours. Now you're explaining versus the other guy who thought it would be 3 hours. Now he realizes like, no, it is a lot of work. So we as a QA engineer, we also participate on estimation. That's very important, right? I think it's if you take an approach of, less commitment and over delivery, that's better. So make sure that you fight for the right amount of time, but don't abuse it. People will figure it out, right? So you give an amount of details, you get the proper estimates, and then when you explained about this estimation, like, yeah, I think it's 13 hours because of XYZ reason, other party might come, support you. Be like, okay, yeah, it's 13 points. But, here's my question to all of you. Don't you feel if this is the culture that we're going to live in, don't you feel like that we need a facilitator of these meetings? Because otherwise it will be a chaos, right? Someone's talking, I think 12 2 points, someone will jump on, be like, no, I think 13, what are you talking about? Things like that. So we need a facilitator. Because in Agile, it's all about being Agile. It's about giving value to others' opinion, learn and understand teammates' problem, and realistically come up with an estimate. If your estimate is not right, the delivery wouldn't hit the delivery date for sure. So you need to be fact-driven. You need to be precise and understanding. So in order to do it, we need a facilitator for our team. Who will facilitate all the meetings? Who will help guiding the team go to the right directions? And who is that person? Any idea what that role called?
Is it
Scrum Master?
Product owner?
Product owner is the client. Product owner is just me.
Scrum Master.
Scrum Master, good. That's what a Scrum Master does. He's the leader and facilitator of the team. He's not a boss. His job not is to boss around, but to help you. Help guiding these planning meetings, help guiding stand-up meetings, because we do 4 other meetings. You have just learned about 1. We do 4 others. So we need one guy just to manage and maintain and run all these meetings. And that's the Scrum Master. That's the certification you're gonna get in. That's gonna take certified Scrum Masters. And certified Scrum Master knows how to do estimation, how to run a team, how to motivate the team, how to facilitate those meetings, how to do story groomings, how to do proper pointing systems. That's what he knows. So after you take the Scrum Master certification, you can become a Scrum Master if you're good in communication, you have some sort of leadership skill, and you can become a Scrum Master. Scrum Master makes about starting from 100K to 160K in New York. I just looked it up right before I started doing this training. So it's a great job, very valuable. You can do that. Now, can you get a certificate as an QA? Yes, of course. You don't have to be a Scrum Master in order to get a certified Scrum Master certification. If you get it as a QA, it also shows that you know how to participate in an Agile team. And 80% corporations are Agile. So you better know this estimation. You know how to talk, when to defend your work and all these things. That's a skill. That's a mindset. So getting the certificate will help become a better QA engineer or better developers. When I was at Accenture and Capgemini, we are the 2 largest consulting company of the world. When we hire somebody, we normally, enforce them to get the Scrum Master certification, because today or tomorrow they will be deployed to a client side, and eventually they'll be working part of the software development team. Whatever role they serve, they will be part of the team. And by knowing the Scrum Master certification, knowing Agile, it's always helpful. And clients also give a lot of values when you have the certification. Okay, so that's part of a relative estimates. It's not easy for me to explain every single details of relative estimates in half an hour, but go watch videos. I'll give you some videos on YouTube. It'll help. And so Jira, right? Relative estimates, Jira is the tool. And then we assign task, right? Let's say this is the backlog. And we're doing a sprint planning meeting. We're discussing all those stories, setting up priorities, estimation. And then finally, we'll have a sprint backlog. And then what you do, we assign tasks to certain developers. How do we assign? Who does assign? Nobody assigns actually in Agile, because we are a self-independent team. Everybody assigned to themselves. Okay? When you take Certified Scrum Master certification, there was a question that who assigned task in Agile? And 98% students will say Scrum Master, but that's a wrong answer. Team does. The team assigns to themselves. That's what the team we want to build. Self-independent. Okay, you are 40 people here. You can take one, someone can take one, and the next person can take the next one, and next person can take the next one. So we assign to ourselves. Can Scrum Master assign us? Yes, of course. Anybody can assign anybody. I can assign a task to the BA. I can assign a testing task to my fellow. But that has to be agreed on the sprint planning meeting. So then, by doing this Agile, we have a clear visibility of the product, who's doing what. Unlike Waterfall, that I have no idea what is my testers are doing. Now, when it's come to the sprint backlog, right? In Jira, I have this called active sprint, right? When you bring them from backlog to active sprint backlog, and then there is an active sprint board. Here we can see this board. And initially everything will be right here to do. And as this is how we track every day. Okay. Now, these columns are customizable. It could be backlog, development, QA, done. This is the board that we work off every day to keep track of our work so that we don't lose track. And who manages this board? Everybody, the team does, right? Each of these are user stories. You can read each of these, right? How do you read it? Go click it, and it'll open it. So it'll open, you'll see who is assigned, who's the reporter. Jira automatically keeps tracks of everything. You can set a priority. You can say this is a high priority user story. So this is how you know that you have to do that first, even though there is not much of details because it's done by my students, they're practicing. But this is how the board will look like. And once a story is moved from the backlog or to do to in progress, that means someone's working on it, right? And once you're done with that, and then you will move this to done. Now the definition of done, what is the definition of done in Agile? When do you decide that it is done? In order to consider this thing as done, every story to be, to be able to move to done column, it needs to match the definition of done criteria. So we also define the definition of done criteria during the sprint planning meeting, which is, it could be something like that, definition of done. Before the developer makes the story done, all the acceptance criteria will have to be fulfilled. Yes, that's the definition of done. One rule of definition of done. So who defines the definition of done criteria? The team does, including with the help of the product owner and Scrum Master and the whole team. Agile is teamwork. Self-sufficient, self-organizing team. It's entirely teamwork. That's the first thing you need to adopt in your mind to be agile. Teamwork. The definition of done is a rule that defined by the team, that under what criteria we'll move the story to done. So teams set up multiple criteria that code review should be done. That means one developer written code that needs to be reviewed by another developer to check errors. That could be a criteria. Now, if you apply the rule to your team, you will create the rule as a team. And you have a voice on the table. Now, if you create the rule, then everybody will follow. Then in order for a story to move here from in progress to done, you must do a code review. And code review means like review by your eyes. So no blocker or major issues. No defects can be attached to those story in order that performance testing has to be done. Tomorrow we will talk about different kinds of tests. Still we're talking about Agile. Tomorrow we will narrow down our focus to testing. What are the different types of tests we do, test cases we write, things like that. Acceptance and functional testing done. So all these kinds of are definition of done criteria. If all these criteria met, then only you will be able to move. So that's the definition of done. Okay, so again, recapping what we have talked about just now is we talked about a product owner role, who is somebody from the client. Now, if you're working for JP Morgan, who's the client when JP Morgan makes a software? JP Morgan itself, their business department, right? Their CTO, CEO will decide to add a new feature that becomes a project, and they will assign a product owner. And that product owner will come work with the technology department, and you will have an agile team within the technology department, and that product owner will come and work with you day-to-day basis until the product is finished. So that's great to have a product owner with us, so you can ask questions. And then secondarily, we'll have a Scrum Master, who will be a facilitator. And then we'll have the team. The team will consist of BA, developers, QA, DevOps engineer, release engineers, so on and so forth, UX designers, so on and so forth. I hope you got a clear understanding of that. Now we do a few other meetings in that 2 weeks. So you still were the first day until sprint planning meeting. But how we spend the 2 weeks, 10 days, 10 working days, is the whole Scrum model, right? We'll take a look, but before that, I would like to play a video. So I'll play that video, tell me how you like it, and I'll take a break of 5 minutes, watch the video, and then I'll come back.
Quick primer. Hi, my name is Steve Stedman, and I am the founder of Usility Software. In this video, we will cover the basics behind Scrum, and we'll take a look at how Scrum compares to waterfall development, and we'll examine the 3 roles, 3 artifacts, and 3 ceremonies that make up Scrum. First, let's take a look at how Scrum compares to the older alternative of waterfall development. Waterfall typically goes through a lengthy planning process, which could take several months, followed by building the product, which again could take many months, and then testing the product, reviewing, and eventually deploying the product. At this point, you may end up bringing the wrong product to market if market demand or technology has changed since the original plan was developed. There are several problems with this method. First of all, the planning must be completed before any work begins, and in most cases the planning is done without entirely understanding the project. Once development is being done, oftentimes things get sent back to the planning phase, and the project either needs to start over, or the developers are just criticized for not understanding the plan. This cycle can happen many times. When development is done building the product, it gets thrown over the fence to test, where when problems are encountered, it bounces back to development and sometimes back to planning. The same issues occur in the next few steps, with lots of backstepping and doing over. This can lead to lag times and many months to several years in order to get a product out the door. With Scrum, an implementation of Agile, the process is broken up into smaller pieces. First, we do just enough planning to get started with, building the minimal feature set. We build what was planned. Next, we test and review that small feature set and get it ready to ship. When that cycle is complete, we end up with a potentially shippable product. This process usually occurs in a time period of 1 to 3 weeks. This is then repeated time and time again, reducing the time from planning to development to testing. Each time through the planning process, we're doing just enough planning to complete the next incremental release. You end up with several incremental releases called sprints. A sprint usually takes from 1 to 3 weeks, and you just keep repeating these sprints until your product is feature complete. Sometimes you may end up shipping your product after the second sprint, or the third, or the fourth, or even further, but you eventually end up with a shipping product. In Scrum, there are 3 key roles that are needed for the framework to work well. First, the product owner. This is the person responsible for defining the features that are needed in the product. The product owner has the bright ideas that turn into products. The Scrum Master is a servant leader to the team, responsible for protecting the team and the process, running the meetings, and keeping things going. The team can be made up of developers, testers, writers, and anyone else that helps in building the product. Team members often play multiple roles. Some days developers may end up doing test, or testers may end up writing. Either way, the team works to get the product done. There are 3 artifacts or documents that are used in Scrum. First, the product backlog. This is where product owners create a prioritized list of features, known as user stories, that could go into the product. This list evolves and changes priority with every sprint. User stories are a way of describing a feature set that follows the as a user, I need something so that reason format. This way of phrasing a user story allows the product owner to specify the right amount of detail for the team to estimate the size of the task. The highest priority user stories go into the sprint backlog. These get estimated for size and are committed to for the next sprint. Burn down charts show the progress during a sprint on the completion of tasks in the sprint backlog. This chart should approach 0 points as the work is being completed. There are 3 ceremonies that make up Scrum. Think of these as meetings or discussions. Sprint planning is where the product owner, Scrum Master, and team meet to discuss the user stories and estimate their relative sizes. The daily Scrum is a brief stand-up meeting where the team discusses what they have completed since the previous meeting, what they're working on, and anything that might be blocked or need help. The sprint review and retrospective occurs at the end of the sprint. This is where the team demonstrates the completed work to the product owner, and then the team discusses what they can do to improve the process going forward. Let's bring it all together and take a look at the Scrum workflow. Start with the product backlog. which is where the product owner builds a list of the bright ideas and features that could go into the product. The product owner prioritizes the list and brings the top items to the team. Sprint planning is where the team, product owner, and Scrum Master discuss the top priority user stories, determining what can go into the next sprint. The output from the sprint planning meeting is the sprint backlog. This is a list of user stories that have been committed to for the next sprint. The entire team and product owner have a solid understanding of what each of the user stories involves based on the discussions from the sprint planning meetings. The sprint is a 1 to 3 week time box where the work committed to in the sprint backlog is worked on through to completion. During the sprint, the daily Scrum occurs as a stand-up meeting where the team discusses what they have completed and what they are working on, as well as any blocked items. The outcome of the sprint is a potentially shippable product. Potentially shippable means that the product owner can decide if it is ready to ship or if there are any additional features needed before it ships. At the end of the sprint, a sprint review and sprint retrospective meeting occurs. The sprint review is where the team showcases their work to the product owner, and the retrospective is where the team works on what they can do to improve their process. Repeat this workflow for each sprint. Now, for a software solution to help manage the workflow. Usility has been built around the...
All right. So I think that gave you a little bit of insight inside of the Scrum framework. Do you guys have any questions about the video or anything else? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so no questions. Was that helpful? Any comments?
I have a question. What is the difference between BA and product owner? Both the same or different a little bit?
BA and product owner, they are two different roles. So there are BA, product owner, and Scrum Master. Product owner is the client that is going to help you to define the stories. Scrum Master is the leader of the team who will facilitate all the meetings. And business analyst is the one who's going to write it in Jira.
So business, like a business analyst or BA, he write the test cases or he write the requirements, or product owner write the requirement?
BA writes the user stories, yes.
Oh, user story, BA, okay.
And BA will also write the acceptance criteria within the user stories.
Not the product owner, right?
Not the product owner. Product owner will answer the question.
Got it, right.
Product owner will give the vision that this is what I want. BA will have to write it. That's BA's job.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more question?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's who works on what user story?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Who decides who works on what user story? Like who distributes the work?
Like you said, let's go back to the last slide. So at the sprint planning meeting, things get distributed, right? We talk about the stories that we're going, we talk about the stories that we're going to do within that sprint. We talk, we understand the stories. We talk about the dependencies. Sometimes one story has dependency on others. We talk about that, and then we distribute among ourselves. The team distributes among themselves. Anybody can assign to anybody. So it gets distributed at the first day during the sprint planning meeting. Now, can that be changed? Yes. How do we distribute, right? That might be a next question. So we go to Jira. We have our active sprint board, active sprint. And you open any of these. And you change the assignee to anybody. I can change the assignee to any users. It should be your name. When you get a job, it should say your name. and this tool is tool has intelligence. If you type like Sheikh, it should it should pop up Sheikh. You just pick the one that you like. In that case, like I'm assigning to user 7 right now, and this user 7, whoever the person is, got that assigned. He will get an email because his Jira is connected within the email server under the firewall of that company. So he will get an email saying that someone has just assigned you a new task. Here is the link. When he clicks the link, it will directly bring him here. Make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So if we have let's say we have a 20 test cases for first sprint. So who's gonna take the first 5 test cases? Like if I want to take 5 of them, so who's gonna take the? So who's gonna the questions the guy asked, can I take the first 5 of them, or I can take the 10 to 15 or to 15 to 20? Is it is it possible for me, or someone's gonna assign me?
Depends on how the team is architected. If you are the only tester, then you take everything, not just 5 of them. You have to do everything. Is that happens in reality? Yes, man. Unfortunately, there are a lot of companies where small companies will hire you who can't afford to have 1 or more than 1 testers in an agile team. What do you got to do? So you have to do everything. You might not be able to do 40, but you have to do what you can do, right? So in that scenario, you're doing everything. Now, if you have 4 testers, some of them are manual testers. Let's say 2 of them are manual testers, 2 of them are automation testers, or automation engineers. So then you are doing you're doing all of them manually, and these 2 are doing automation. They're converting these manual test cases into automation scripts. In that case, you are doing 10, and your partner is doing 10. Now, you can pick one, he can pick one. It's really, you got to work it out, and that's why the sprint planning meeting is there.
Okay. So we're gonna discuss ourselves
Yeah, you can. So this sprint planning meeting could be 2 days. I've seen that the big meetings could go 8 hours because you need to plan everything all these stories that you are going to do within that sprint. That needs to be planned out and architected properly, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Then the second thing we're talking about, is that it? No. And what we have is something called daily stand-up. That's another very powerful meeting in Agile. We do daily stand-up. Any idea? I know some of you might know already. I'd like to hear from you. Any idea what daily stand-up means?
Yes, daily stand-up every day, just a 5 to 15 minutes time. So all the team members, like a developer, tester, and Scrum Master, all are together. They say what they do yesterday, what they did, what they're doing tomorrow, and there is an obstacle. That's why they are discussing in the daily stand-up meeting, right?
It's a quick meeting, like 15 minutes every day, and they just talk about like 3 things. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And if there are any obstacle in a way that you need any help. Everybody talks to everybody, right? But there are certain rules of doing stand-up meeting. First of all, it's going to be a fixed time. Let's say 9:30. Most of the team have their stand-up at 9:30, earlier as possible. Some team will do, afternoon because team has remote employees. Sometimes it's an offshore in India or wherever. So they accommodate that time. So it's a fixed time meeting every day. We come and we do the stand-up. The idea is still that, and like I said, we need to be agile, right? So the idea is to really stand up and do this meeting, in front of a board. And then everybody talks about what they have done yesterday, what are you doing today? And if they're if you need any help, right? So someone asked me a question earlier, like, if you have a question, what do you do? That's when you ask it. There is a process of, there is a process within Agile to get your question answered every day, because Agile is fast. It's a framework. A lot of other people have ran through it. They have figured that there are questions all the time. So that's why they started this stand-up concept. So any question about stand-up? I had another video to show you, but you have already watched one. And, I can probably give you these for later time. The daily stand-up meeting. How a perfect team do stand-up meetings. It's part of Agile, part of Scrum. You do it every day. There is a way to do it. There are certain things to do, certain things not to do. Certain things are good practice and bad practice. So I had a video ready. I think I will just give it to you in the chat, and you guys can watch it later.
I have a question. So,
Sure.
so how many teams gonna join the Scrum meeting? Is it, daily Scrum meeting? Is it like all other team related to applications, like the product we are building, or only the Agile team, like only?
It's just your team.
Okay.
Yes, that's a good question. If you work for JP Morgan Chase, for example, they might have a lot of Agile team, not just your team. They might have like 30, 40 Agile teams of software developers and testers. Individually, they're working on multiple different features. It could be multiple different features of one application, or they're working on multiple different applications. Bank might have, how many, I don't know, a lot of applications. One for their mortgage, one for customers, one for student loan. However, this meeting is just for your team.
Okay.
Just the 12, 13 people in your team, maybe less, is just for that team, not with others.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Question? So that's a very important piece of Agile, that it provides 4 meetings. So we talked about 2, sprint planning and daily Scrum or daily stand-up. The third one that we saw in the video was sprint demo. And that's at the end of the sprint, the last of the day of the sprint. You like to show to your product owner that what have you done, right? Essentially, the last day of the sprint, what you expect is basically all the stories will be moved to done, because you're supposed to get everything done. Because you were the one who estimated it. The whole team estimated it. And the team's supposed to give the commitment and finish it. And all these stories should be at the done column. Right? It's a lot of stories. I'm not going to move right now, but you got the point that it should be at the done column.
Then, I have a question on that. Is there one person that has to move all of the stories to done, or does each person, the devs, QA people, each person actually moves their own stories over to done?
It is a very good question. It's encouraged that you do move your own story to done when it is done. And then what do you do after you move? People might not notice. And once we have daily stand-up meeting every day, we have this board open in front of us. And you can either move during the sprint, during the stand-up meeting, and that in the stand-up meeting, we talk about what did you do yesterday. So this is a very good time for you to say that, I have worked on that, it is done, I'm moving it, and I'm picking the next one. See that? You can say it while you're doing it at the sprint at the daily stand-up meeting. Or you should do it before you come to the daily stand-up meeting, at least. If you're not doing while at the stand-up meeting, you might not have that culture in your team. People might like to stand up and do it. So you should do it before you come to the stand-up meeting. You should always move your stories before the stand-up meeting. And come and with the fresh updates at the stand-up meeting. And you should say, I have done with 2 test cases, or I've done with 2 automation scripts. I have moved them from in progress to done or QA to done, and I'm ready to take the next one. And then you can go back and assign next to, under your name. So the team should be self-motivated. That's the key of Agile. Okay?
Hi, Sheikh. I have one question.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, as discussed in the sprint planning, if a few of the user stories are not completed in that sprint, what will happen to those user stories?
That will go to the next sprint. That's not ideal. That's not ideal that you, you actually don't complete the one that you have. But if you do, that will go to the next one, next sprint. That will become the first priority for the next sprint, right? Now, question is, you have estimated stories. Whatever story you see on these all active sprint board, these are all here because they were estimated at the sprint planning meeting. And then, what if I have 5 defects right now? I'm at the middle of the sprint. What if I just encountered 5 defects? Now, yeah, I know we will have to log the defects, right? How you log it? You go to create. You choose the issue type to bug, this red sign down here. You write the summary, you write the steps, all this thing, and you create it. You assign it to a developer. There is an assigning column somewhere, assigning. You can pick a developer, you can assign to a developer here and hit the create button, it will create the defect. We'll do that tomorrow as well. So the question, if new defect comes right now, then when do we fix it? Do we fix it within the sprint or it'll go to the next sprint? That's also a very important interview question because that happens all the time. Now, if you go back and fix stuff in here within that 2 weeks that you already have estimated, then you might have to de-scope some of the stories and adapt new of these defects to fix. That's one. Or you can easily put those defects in the next sprint to fix. What would be your approach? That's a question. Now, answer is, it really depends on the severity of the defects. If you find a defect that is really severe, right, there is a way to calculate the severity of a defect. Not all the defects are same as far as the severity and priority goes. Again, there is a way to calculate the severity, and it goes high, medium, low. So if you find a really severe defect that has to do something with login or data breach or really something severe, you should de-scope some of the stuff out of the sprint and fix that defect first. Right? Or if the defect is not severe, it's like some sort of spelling error, right? It looks bad, but it's not stopping anything. It's not that severe. So you can put that in the next sprint. And all those things will be discussed again during the defect planning meeting, sprint planning meeting. But within the sprint, that's why I have these 4 meetings, these 4 ceremonies, part of the Scrum. But there are some additional meetings you can do. It's not part of the Scrum. Scrum doesn't say that you have to do it, but if you need it, it's your team. You can do meetings anytime you want. There are meetings called 3 Amigo meeting, time to time, like you said. Who are the 3 amigos? BA, QA, and developer. What if even after a sprint planning meeting, you as a QA, you have a lot of questions about the acceptance criteria? What if that is not clear? What if you were reading in Jira and BA didn't write it properly? Or you are not understanding it? You can always call a meeting between you, BA, and developers. Separate meeting, 1 hour, right? Doesn't hurt. It's your team. You have a lot of corporate meeting rooms in your office. Hop onto one, call a meeting in Outlook, and this kind of meeting is called three amigo meetings. Three amigo meeting. That could be called anytime, as many times. It could be called just between you and BA. Two amigos, that's also fine. But three amigo is a term that they use. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then the next one is defect review meeting. Now, if you found some of the critical defects that is stopping everybody, you can call a meeting. And you should call a meeting to everybody, defect review meeting. Put a time in everybody's calendar for half an hour to 1 hour, and you will review the defect. You will demoing, showing the team that you have caught this defect, which you're supposed to, and the severity of this defect is so bad. Now what to do? And the product owner will be there, Scrum Master will be there, developers will be there, entire team will be there. Then you talk and you figure it out. And that is about being agile. You don't feel left over, and you also don't do things that you think is the best. You take people's opinion, and we do things by different meetings, collaborations. So you can call a defect review meeting. For say that you can also call a test case review meeting. You have written a test case, and it doesn't, you're not confident enough, you're not sure enough that whether this should satisfy the needs, or you should write more test cases or not. You can call a meeting. Bring the developer, bring the Scrum Master, product owner, and you can call a test case review meeting. Now, some of this corporation, can they make all these meetings as a rule, as regular as these meetings? Yes. Like I said, twist happens every time. This is what Scrum is telling you. But in reality, corporation put their own meetings. They modify Agile according to their needs. End of the day, it's your need. Agile is there for your team to be productive, not for your team to follow Scrum, something like that, right? It's there for you. So that twist happens every day. If you ever go for a QA interview, I think it's your ability to make up those pictures, that what's the best way to do Agile, being able to explain it to them is the key. You can mix and match. They shouldn't come back and say like, no, this is how not Scrum being done. You're not gonna get a barrier like that. So you can modify, you can put your own stuff to make it better, but not being slacked away from the core of the framework. These are the core. So daily stand-up, sprint demo. Sprint demo is at the end. You saw in the video that, while you are everything in the done column, when you actually demo in a conference room to the product owner, like, look, this is the test cases I've written. This is how I've tested it. Developers will demo their work. This is the work we have done. This is the website we have built. It's working. It's been tested. No defects. The demoing the whole thing to the product owner. And the last one is called sprint retrospective. Often it's called a sprint retro or just retro. This is a meeting for yourself. This is a meeting where product owner shouldn't really be there. Because product owner is from the client side, right? This is the meeting for the team to be able to figure out what could have been better, what didn't you do right, what was wrong. So normally we play a different game. Everybody writes on one issue, and then we fix that. We want to fix that in the next sprint. So it's a part of our consistent learning and getting better practice. So it's very effective. Let's say that normally what happened in my team, right? I had a few members who, so we had a stand up at 9:30, right? And I had few members who couldn't come at 9:30, who were constantly coming late. And then a couple of sprints passed by, and then it affected his productivity. And then eventually, he wasn't saying anything. He was coming late. Like every day during the sprint planning meeting, he used to show up 15 minutes late. And then finally, when we did the retrospective, we found that he had a newborn baby. That baby wasn't letting him sleep at night, and he couldn't sleep until 4 or 5 a.m. So he couldn't come. Actually, he wanted to come before 9 at office, but he couldn't make it. So that's an issue. That's a personal issue, but that's also matters when it comes to Agile, because we need to look out for each other. That personal matters affects in the professional world, no matter what. We cannot eliminate it. So we moved. So what was the solution? We moved the stand-up to 12:30, and he was perfect. He was productive. He used to come at 11. He used to work late. So excuse me. So sprint retro is there for our team to be able to talk out the issues and figure out a solution and implement that immediately in the next sprint. Not just talking about issues and solution. Actually implement that in the next sprint. So executable solution within the next sprint. Even if we identify like 30 issues, identify one solution that could be implemented in the next sprint, and the one or two in the next, and the next, and the next. This is how all the issues will be solved. If we are a team and we know how to talk about issues, and we are all smart folks, if we know how to talk about the solution and executable solution, eventually 4, 5, 6 sprint at the beginning is in scaling time of a team. And that happens because of this retrospective concept of Scrum that gives us ability to talk about issues and fixing it. So after 5, 6, 7 sprint, team becomes scalable. Now we all know, how to communicate, what's our bandwidth, how much work I can do, how do we like to work. We also know each other personally a little better. Then Scrum also suggests you, the team activities, like we normally go out to bowlings, movies. Personal connection, personal friendship level is really important. Otherwise, you won't be able to open up to your colleagues. So we also do that, the social activities. We play bowling, movies, a lot of other things, lunch, things like that. So, and we do retro to figure out issues. And I think you should watch some videos on how to do stand-up, how team does stand-up, and how team does retrospective, and how team does sprint planning meeting. That would give you an inside visibility. Now that you were watching me talking, you're understanding, but you're probably not, viewing that team sitting on a table kind of thing. And there are a lot of YouTube videos out there. I can email that to you. You can even look it on yourself and do it. And that's the key of, that's all about Scrum. At the end of the Scrum, your goal is to deliver a shippable product, and the product owner will decide whether to release or not. Now, that raises a question, what do you mean by release? That is what we're going to talk about tomorrow. It's a very important piece, the most important piece of software development. How do we release from developers to QA to the production? That means we have different environments to work with. We don't work out of a production environment. Nobody will let us work on JP Morgan's production environment for testing. What if we delete the whole thing? Then JP Morgan is gone. So we will have our own testing environment, own server, own database. Developers will have their own database. Now, developer writes code on their own server, and then that gets deployed to QA. Then we start testing. Then once we complete everything, once it's matched the definition of done criteria, we test everything, we deploy that to production. So this deployment from one place to another is called, there is an automated way of doing it. So far, until last 5 years, it was a manual process. And every time there was a deployment happen, everybody's heads get, paranoid, like what's going to happen? What if everything breaks in production? Even though it was tested well in the testing environment, production is a very sensitive place, right? Everything could go wrong and your business could get shut down. Now the corporations are adopting DevOps process, and DevOps will tell you how to deploy that automatically. So in order to deploy automatically, your testing needs to also be automatically done. What if there is an environment where developers are writing code, all the testings are automated, all the deployment is automated? Think about that. Then how fast it would be.
Is
So we
that
don't.
is that what they're like Docker, those containers? Is that what they're using for that now?
Yeah, the Docker is one tool. What I'm talking about, the process, whatever tool you can use, I'm talking about a race. Either you are driving a Mercedes sports car or BMW, it doesn't really matter. Yeah, Docker is a newer technology that helps doing these DevOps pipeline smoothly, simultaneously, and cost effectively. But there are other solutions out there too. Containerization is a big world in software development, which a little bit of details. But I'm talking about the automated deployment, right? So three things: plan, develop, test, deploy. These are the four major things in software development. Can that be automated? And that's what DevOps is all about, which I would like to touch base a little bit tomorrow. But that's a big world. A DevOps engineers makes about 180K easily in New York. That's that demandable. Okay, so I'll take a pause and I'll start for questions. So that's it for today's class. At least I hope that you got an overview of Scrum, and if you take it further a little bit, do some research and start looking some YouTube videos, you'll get a clear understanding of Scrum. And if you read through it, you'll be able to pass the Scrum certification. So question.
Hi there, this is Sarma. Is there a tool to track correction of errors when you're doing the process? Because like when you're having these meetings that are 15 minutes, it's like there's some, offhand things that are changed. Like how are we tracking it? How are we making sure it's completed and it's not just sort of like, we'll do it and then it never gets done?
Jira, right here.
But is there like a errors thing, like something where you're just like, oh, there's a typo here or there's a grammatical error there? Like, is there a special column? So what kind of error are you talking about? We're talking about an error in the software. If there's an error in the software, you need to find it. That's our job, to find it, the error. No, I understand finding it, but like tracking it. So people aren't saying, well, was this, at least there was like, okay, these are the list of things that we fixed, and other people, everyone contributes to the team, but at least we have an idea that, right. So that's called, right? Once we find an error, what do we do with that? We log it. We write a defect. We create a defect, however you call it, logging it, creating it, writing it. What you essentially do is come here and create a bug. And bug and defect it's a documentation that is about the error. And you log it here. It'll create a story like that. Okay. Keep it like that, yes. And is there a difference between doing like, a code error or something that's like a front end error bug? Yeah, there could be a different level of bug, right? You can categorize them, but bug is a bug that needs to be fixed. So so sure. So if I want to create a bug, right? And there are components. First of all, I need to write a summary called login. Maybe I'm writing a login error. Login issues. Okay, and then components. Do you see the components? Now this bug could come from the UI components. It could come from the database component. It could come from the API components, right? Any of it comes from. So normally in corporations, you will have to choose one UI versus API versus database. You can keep track of them like that, right? That's this is the defect. Now you are talking about some sort of spelling errors, a minor defect. That's also a defect. That also needs to be kept tracked.
and fix throughout these Jira board.
Yeah, no, because when you give it out to, like, when you showing it to the client owner, they gravitate towards spelling errors or things versus the overall look. So something to placate them and say, okay, we have a list of these are all the front end stuff that has to be fixed. We know, but we want to do the back end stuff. Because the moment they look at it, their eye just gravitates towards like something that's not the right verbiage. It's not they go for the details.
Sure. So I think tomorrow we will talk about the different types of tests. Developers are also responsible for tests, some sort of test before they give it to QA. It's not like just I've written code and here you go, figure it out. They also do test. It's called unit test. And during that unit test, what they test is the code itself. They don't test the functionality. They just do, they check through those security alerts. They check through the spelling mistakes in their code, and they do some sort of static code analysis. That's what they call it, right? And there are some tools to do it. When they write, let's say they have written 100 lines of code, the first thing they would do is unit test those codes. Essentially, they would do is a static code analysis. That's one. That's under unit test. Secondarily, they will do a code review. That means if you're the one who's writing this code, they will review with a human, glance through it, not like really going through every details, but like spell checks and things like that. So this is how they do the unit test. Then it comes to us. They're responsible for doing unit test. So my specific experience regarding how to make scalable QA team to lower the amount of defects at the end. So I would be sharing some of my experience with you that how we can put more focus on unit testing. This is called a shift left strategy. Shift left is a buzzword that everybody is looking for. So if you really want to know more, like how can we reduce the defects, look up shift left approach of testing, and you will see a bunch of resources, and that will help you not only answer the question you have, but also give you a lot of other details.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah. So there is a process. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a very unique process of the series of tests we do one after another. There is a very defined and unique and stable process that will help you to reduce all these silly errors. But end of the day, if any defects occurs, you need to log it here. And that needs to be kept tracked and worked on and fixed and retested and regression tested. So we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Do we have something like we call a bug life cycle?
Yeah, that is the life cycle. When the defect is found, you log it, and then it goes back to the developer. He fixes it, comes back to you. You retest it, right? You re-execute the test case that produced that bug, and then if it is fixed, then you fix it. You close it. If it's not fixed, then you reopen it, reassign it back to the developer. He will work on that, and it comes back to you. But you are the gatekeeper. Unless and until you said it's fixed, it's not moving. So you have some power within the team. You are the gatekeeper, and you should not slick it throughout the door. If it's not fixed, you should raise your voice and say it's not fixed. I still see an error, and that's what your job is all about.
Hi, Sheikh. There is any testing on the production environment?
Yes, of course. After they deploy to the production, there are some smoke tests, right? To make sure that nothing breaks. Unless you do some tests, you wouldn't know whether you broke something or not. But most likely at the beginning, you would not have access to it. Only certain people who has a lot of experience, they will be given access to do certain kind of tests in production.
Where we do the UAT testing, is it kind of the production or the QA environment?
Pre-production. Before we do production, we do UAT test. I will be covering that tomorrow as well. All kinds of tests that we do. Smoke, functional, integration, regression, UAT. These are the main tests that we do. There are different levels. They're different, nature-wise. And then developers also does unit test at the beginning, like I said. So it's unit, smoke, functional, integration, end-to-end, regression, UAT, performance. 8 stages of testing.
Hi, Sheikh. Are you going to send these recordings yesterday's and today's and tomorrow's?
I actually will be able to send all of these after doing a little bit of modification and edits, maybe tomorrow. After you finish the course, you'll get it. That's for sure. But just allow me 2 more days. And also,
Okay. Sure, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
of course.
So do we have any dashboard like we have for Jira, like we are tracking all the
Yes,
to-do list and in progress and done? So do we have any other dashboard for the defect or bug, like we can see what are the bugs we got last sprint?
You can create a dashboard right here. If you see the screen right now, you can create a dashboard. Jira gives you a lot of ability out of the box. You can view all the dashboard. You can always create dashboard accordingly. You can see that, the graphical view of how many defects you found and all this kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, my dashboard is not set up properly, but then you can also do filterization and all this thing. So there is a little bit of learning curve about this tool. It takes fairly about a week to learn. You spend a couple of hours a day on it. It's not really hard still. I can suggest you really good Udemy video under $10, $20 you can buy, and you can literally learn everything from that video about Jira, how to work on this tool. But then again, as a QA, you don't need to. You don't need to know all of these. All you need to know is how to write defects, how to write tests, and how to work out of these boards, right? But it's always learning will make you more knowledgeable within the industry and more respectful, and then you will grow within the industry. People will judge you based out of your technical ability of how much you know, right? So it's always encouraged to learn more. So give me some feedback about today's session. Was it hard? Did you get the gist of it? Or do you need to look into more details, or do you need any other information that you think that'll be helpful?
So I think
it was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was very intuitive, a lot of good hands-on information. It really gave me a lot of information. It really did. Very informative.
Thank you. Yes, I tried to give you that real life view that I used to do for globally for Accenture. Last year I was in Poland and India doing the same thing. Agile is just one, and then there are more to it. Just to develop and scale software development, rockstar software development team. So one of the keys is to scale up your QA team. Developers are good. They know how to write codes. They are normally that type, but then QA engineering, if we can scale up and put them into the same manner of developers and have them work together, create an agile team, create a DevOps team, all these things together, it is a rockstar software development team. So glad to know that. Glad to know. Some other feedbacks from others?
I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate that because I had a lot of confusion about it. I came to know so many things and hope to learn more. And I really appreciate that the way you explained everything.
Thank you. Awesome. Good to know.
It's a great session as long as like a manual. So for the manual is a great session, and it's very like a real. We see some real-time scenario like how Agile work and how like Jira works, especially. Thank you a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any critics down here? I like to hear some criticism too, because that gives me ability to make myself better as part of retrospective, right? That's what we do in Agile.
Do you have any you think is very good video or book for us to wash or read, because it may take us a lot of time to explore all kinds of material about Agile.
Yes. You see that one thing you've realized, that Agile world is very diverse. There are Scrum, and then Kanban, and XP, and then people don't do that. People actually make Scrumban. People make Kanban and Scrum, and they do Scrumban. So there are diversities. So if you start looking in Google, you will get those diverse information that's going to make you crazy. So focus on Scrum. I think Scrum is sort of organized because it's been there for a while. Whoever talks about Scrum will talk about these 4 ceremonies, the process I talked about pretty much. Learn that. Don't confuse yourself. As far as the videos and notes, like I said, I will consolidate all of these into one, and hopefully Yen will be able to send that to you after tomorrow sometime. But I promise I'll do that. I'll try my best to put together as much as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything that you want to see tomorrow? I'm having a plan of showing you the testing itself, the real testing types.
So do you guys have any syllabus for that? Like, you guys gonna you can show us tomorrow or like day after tomorrow for 30 days? Any syllabus or any overview?
Well, there was a syllabus given to you already, I believe, and overview. But then I found you guys are amazing, smart, and interactive, and willing to learn. So I actually took the whole thing beyond and above. Now we talked about a lot of serious things. I said actually we went beyond and above the syllabus that we were initially planning. Even I would like to show you guys tomorrow real testing, how we write test cases, how we do different tests and things like that. Yeah. So, is there anything particular? So we already crossed that syllabus. We've talked about way beyond that.
Yeah, I have a question still, like for getting the job, how far we need to know like automation?
Automation. So look, these are 2 different roles. Manual testing is called test analyst. QA analyst, and automation testers are called QA engineers or automation engineers. These are 2 different roles. Eventually, you need to learn both. If you want to be an automation engineer, you need to know manual. Then you need to know programming. Because without being a tester manually, how do you automate? But in order to be an QA analyst or get a job as a QA analyst, you don't really need automation. And you already know so much. All you have to do is how to write those test cases, do some practice, and learn the Agile a little better so you can talk about it. And then you have to learn the different types of tests. Front end, back end, smoke, functional, that we're going to talk about tomorrow. You need to know how to write defects, how to write test cases. There is a very important kinds of tests that we do called, integration test. That's a major thing. How to figure out the integration point of a software in the back end and write a test accordingly. You need to know how to write the back end test. All these things. So you need to learn SQL that I was talking about yesterday. You need to learn some SQL. That's a mandatory thing for a manual tester or a QA analyst.
Hi, Sheikh. Yeah, it's already over the hour, and thank you so much. Yeah, thanks everybody for coming. And this is not something you can learn in 2 or 3 days. It does take time, and also this is a very practical area that you need to do it really for many years. Then you become as fluent as Sheikh. I think you made it sound very easy, but it's not. It's just a lot of things that it takes time to accumulate all the knowledge. Yeah, but thank you, Sheikh. Thanks for your enthusiasm and your knowledge. You're willing to share all of that with everybody.
Absolutely. And yeah, thank you so much. And like you said, thank you, Young, for putting this together. And all of you has been amazing audience and participant. I'm sure we will come up with a future plan, not to just leave you guys here, but also to help you all the way through. Let's see what comes along the way. But I'm excited for tomorrow's session, at 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, we are too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was a great experience. Have a good one.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.